Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to do quite quickly through mixed-use developments, and on a practical aspect of mixed use, Chris obviously has got lots of experience of dealing with those. But basically, a mixed-use development is any combination of office, retail, leisure, residential. You can get all sorts of different things, and they do bring their own problems and opportunities. So, just very quickly, by way of background, I mean, mixed use can be anything, and in fact, any city centre, any town centre has always been a mixed-use development, although planners really, really like them now. And most commonly, we think of a mixed use of commercial and residential use. And most mixed-use developments incorporate residential elements. If you think, for example, of one of the biggest recent mixed-use developments, obviously the Olympic Park. Massively mixed-use development with now, obviously, all the accommodations being converted into flats, which apparently one of the people who works here, her son is living in one of the flats and said it's absolutely fabulous. It's really come back into vogue now, particularly with regeneration of city centres. This photograph is of a development that was finished in 2005, where we acted for what was then the main retail tenant Spa, but the development also included a doctor's surgery, pharmacy, fast food restaurant, and lots of residential units. And already we're seeing maybe groups that will be in conflict there, because the most difficult thing to balance in a mixed-use development is what everybody wants to pay for. Because everybody needs refuse services, the common parts need to be cleaned, there needs to be car parking, there needs to be electricity, water, gas, decorating of the common parts, repair and maintenance. But who wants what sort of concierge service? Who wants what sort of security? And the list can seem endless. So the problem with mixed use is who pays for what. What the commercial tenant wants, even in the nature of the electricity supply, is different from what the residential tenant wants. And the time that the common parts are being used is different. The water supply requirements are different. Who uses the car park? That can be a massive bone of contention. And when they use it, although I've got a funny one at the moment, because I've got a block of shops with a communal car park at the rear, and there's a church in the middle of the car park. And I said, what happens on Sundays then? Who parks in the car park? And they just looked at me. I said, well, you know, it's relevant. You want your customers in the car park. The church want to use the car park on Sunday for their worshippers. And what happens if there's no room in the car park for the shoppers? So I haven't had a response on that one yet. So I'm waiting to hear what they have to say. The church are only using the car park on Sunday, so they don't want to pay so much for it. Restaurants, disposal of their rubbish, people coming out. I know we're not talking about the nighttime economy here, but for most city centre residents, that is an enormous impact. And if you're in a mixed-use development, then obviously that is incredibly important. Also, there are different service charge regimes for commercial and residential tenants. There's really very little regulation for commercial leases. There is a RICS service charge code of practice. We are starting to see that incorporated into commercial leases a bit more, but that is partly because the market is such that landlords are quite keen to get tenants in. So if the tenant solicitor says, please confirm you'll observe the RICS Service Charge Code of Practice in relation to commercial buildings in connection with the service charge, they are currently accepting that amendment. But 5 years ago, they certainly wouldn't have done. And bearing in mind that most commercial leases are probably 10 or 15 years, it's very patchy. And the lease terms are paramount. With residential leases, they're highly regulated. You've got statutory information required to be given to tenants. You've got rights to challenge the service charge. You've got the RICS Service Charge Residential Management Code. And obviously all the consultation requirements become incredibly complicated when you've got a mixed-use development. The commercial tenants may be pressing the landlord to say, get on with doing X repairs to the roof or to the access to the car park. And they're saying, well, I'm sorry, we've got to go out to consultation. What would you say, Chris? Most consultations take about 4 months, 5 months, more maybe?
Certainly at least 10
yes,
weeks, 12 weeks.
10 to 12 weeks.
Minimum.
Well, if the commercial tenants jumping up and down, they don't want to wait 10 or 12 weeks for something to be done, but they have to, so it can become an area of conflict. Right, okay, so...
I know a number of you from mixed-use developments. Anybody want to ask any questions on that stage? We're just really clarifying the legal obligations. We're going to come to more practical stuff as we move on. You're okay?